Yo, what's going on, you guys? Your boy Devon Terrell in raw form, and welcome to another Help Me Devon raw tutorial. And today, in this Help Me Devon raw tutorial, I'll be showing you guys how I like to EQ when I'm mastering. Something very, very simple, but I feel like is extremely overlooked. Let's get right to it. Okay. So the song we're going to listen to today is one of my own songs. It's called Narcotics. I'm going to play it for you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bypass the EQ back and forth so I can give you an idea of what the EQ is actually doing. So without first, and then I'll keep bypassing it back and forth. Listen closely.
Me and my ex were toxic, we were super sick. That's why we stayed up undercover, so bedridden. Yeah, it was so contagious that my mama knew. She looked at me like, who are you? Get away from me. Yeah, now back to this bed that we living on. Yeah, it's the only place that we could get along. Can't call the homies to chill with us.
Okay, so when I hear that when I engage the EQ, I feel like I get a lot more pop out of the vocal. I feel like the vocal feels a little bit more tucked when it's not on, and when I engage it, it just kind of lives. I feel like the kick kind of hits a little harder. The top end feels a little bit more open. It just feels better. And that's really what I want to drill into you guys' heads. When it comes to mastering, I'm not more so thinking of, I'm more so thinking about how does this feel instead of how it sounds. I'm saying to myself, does this feel better? And when I have this engaged, it feels a lot better. It's more pleasing to my ears, and it's much more effective. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, you should be listening on headphones or studio monitors. I'll be using my AKG K371-BT, which AKG sent me over, and I love, and they're my new go-tos. Make sure you're listening with headphones or studio monitors when we're doing this, because mastering is all about doing small changes to enhance what is already there, okay? All right, so let's move on over to our EQ. Now, you'll notice in my EQ chain that I have multiple EQs. Don't get discouraged by that. Long story short, this particular EQ, I only like to use these 3 bands, which is basically the low, mid, high. And I wanted more EQs so that I can keep EQing more low, mids, highs. And that's basically what it is. Kind of like you having your graphic EQ and you have 6 bands. I'll just create another instance of it. And now I have 6 bands from this 3-3. Don't worry about that. Let's just get right to this. Okay, so the way I like to go about this is I like to listen to the mix and I like to say to myself, what is missing, or how can I enhance this? That's really the theology, the ideology that I have on it, is how can I enhance this mix? So when it comes to the low end, or when it comes to the whole thing, I have a certain frequency spectrums that I like to just attack. 30, 25, 60, 125, the 250 range, 800 is amazing when it comes to vocals or rap vocals, when you're trying to make them pop a little bit more. 1.6 is great for presence when you're trying to get more presence out of the vocal. And then there is the very, very high frequency stuff like 23,000 or 25,000. And I know what you're saying to yourself, well, why would you have those frequencies? This is what makes a mastering EQ a mastering EQ. This is typically the type of knobs or the type of settings that you'll see, and you'll see super high frequency things, and I'll explain to you why that is. Okay, so first thing I did was I came over here and I boosted the 42 hertz range about half a dB, a very small one. Then I moved over here and I boosted 4,000 hertz, about a dB. And then I came over here and I boosted the 5200 hertz range, half a dB. Now, notice that I'm only doing half a dB or a dB. The most I'll boost a frequency in mastering is probably a dB and a half. That's a general thing that I just follow. I don't like to make big changes to a mix when it comes to this. So that's what it is. So I'll bypass it with and without, and I'll keep passing it back and forth. Look closely and listen. Without first.
Me and my ex were toxic, we were super sick. That's why we stayed up undercover, so bedridden. Yeah, it was so contagious that my mama knew. She looked at me like, who are you? Get away from me. Yeah, now back to this bed that we living on. Yeah, it's the only place that we could get along. Can't call the home.
Okay, so if you listen to that closely, you can hear that I got a slight bump in the bottom end, and then I got this openness in the vocal. And where did I get that openness from? I got it from boosting a dB at the 4,000 hertz range, which gave me a little bit more clarity. And then this 5,200 hertz range gave me a little bit of air, which I boosted about half a dB. So those small little moves opened that entire mix up a lot. Now let's scroll on down to the next EQ. I wanted to do more enhancing. So right here, I took out half a dB on the 30 hertz because I probably felt like it was a little bit too much boomy when I checked my sub, which is important when you're doing your mix if you're doing hip hop. When I check my sub, so I boosted, or to me, I took out about half a dB at 30 hertz. Then I then I boosted about a dB at 600 hertz. And remember, I told you that 800 hertz is a beautiful range if you want some more presence. So I wanted some more of that low mid kind of presence. So I boosted in at 600. Keep those numbers in your heads. 800, 1.6, 60, 25. Those ranges are super, super dope to actually boost and stuff like that when it comes to your masters. So for me, I boosted the 600 range for this. And then right here, what I was talking to you about before is this air frequency. 23,000, I boosted half a dB. Now I know what you're saying. Human hearing can't even perceive 23,000 hertz. And the reason why it's on mastering EQs is because although you can't hear it, those frequencies that you're boosting way up there have an effect on the frequencies below it. So basically, when you boost frequencies, these frequencies actually have relationships with each other. And since they have relationships with each other, you got to understand when you boost something somewhere else, it does affect it in other places. So if you boost in the 23,000 hertz range, what does it sound like? Let me let you hear what it sounds like. So without first.
Me and my ex were toxic, we were super sick. That's why we stayed up undercover, so bedridden. Yeah, it was so contagious that my mama knew. She looked at me like, who are you? Get away from me. Yes.
So do you hear like this air, this presence just came into the vocal that you didn't even know was there? It's like this brightness that it's not that bright, but it just feels open. Let me boost it and exaggerate this so you can get an idea of it. So I'm going to exaggerate this 23,000 hertz range. Listen close.
Me and my ex were toxic, we were super sick. That's why we stayed up undercover, so bedridden. Yeah, it was so contagious that my mama knew. She looked at me like, who are you? Get away from me. Yes, now back to this bed that we living on. Yeah, it's the only place that we can get along.
So it's so slight, but when you put it on, you feel like this openness kind of happen in your ears. And this is because we're boosting in this super high frequency and it's affecting everything down below. I like to boost these super high frequencies off the strength of it adds an openness and a clarity and just a feel-good feeling to my ear that's very pleasing. And it's really, really dope that add brightness without adding that brightness that is pretty much can be jarring to the ear and stuff like that. So let's move on over to another instance. And yes, I used another EQ. It's okay. I wanted to keep enhancing this mix, and there were certain things that I wanted it to come out as far as sonics is concerned. So the next thing I did was I boosted in the 120 hertz range. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me a little bit more roundness to the bottom end. It's going to give me a little bit more oomph in that bottom end. So I wanted it there. You'll notice that the bass line will get stronger and stuff like that when it comes to the 120 hertz. This is if you want to boost the presence of the 808s and stuff like that. This is a good place to be, 120 hertz. So I boosted half a dB there. Then you'll see I boosted about a dB at 1,400 hertz, which I told you before, that 1.6 range. I love that range to boost some more presence and get presence out of the vocal. That's what I did, or just the entire mix. And then you'll see I did a half a dB at 4,800. Once again, I added that again just to get a little bit more clarity and openness out of the vocal. So that really that 4,000 to like 6,000 hertz range, you'll notice that when you boost those things, maybe a dB or a half, you'll notice that you'll get a little bit more openness out of the entire mix when you do it. So I'll bypass it back and forth once again to let you get an idea of what happened. So without first.
Me and my ex were toxic, we were super sick. That's why we stayed up undercover, so bedridden. Yeah, it was so contagious that my mama knew. She looked at me like, who are you? Get away from me. Yeah, now back to this bed that we living on. Yeah, it's the only place that we can get along. Can't call her home.
When that EQ is engaged, I feel like the vocal completely just separated itself and put itself in a nice spot by itself and lived and sounded awesome. And that's what you can accomplish just by doing a dB, a half, just little movements that add up to an entire thing. And that's why I think it's so powerful. Okay, last thing that I did was, and this is extremely important, and one thing I will say before I move any further is, when you see 23,000 hertz or 25,000 hertz or anything over 20,000 hertz on an EQ, chances are it's a mastering EQ. That is usually a mastering thing, just to let you know so you can identify it. Okay, so the last thing I do EQ-wise is I am going to do a mid-side trick. Now, what am I saying when I say a mid-side trick? Now, there's this thing. Usually what you're accustomed to with your EQs is a stereo EQ. It basically EQs the entire overall audio signal coming into it. Now, there's something called a mid-side EQ. What the mid-side EQ is, it allows you to EQ the middle of your mix information separate from the side information. Now, I know a lot of you may be saying, wow, or maybe you knew it was about it, or maybe you didn't, but there's a lot of things you could do with this besides just what I'm about to show you. Now, what do I use it for? When it comes to my masters, what I like to do is I like to attack the side information. And what do I like to do? I like to roll off a lot of the low end on the side information. And for me, what does that do? I like, basically it clears up a lot of headroom. It clears up a lot of the mud. I like for my higher end or my brighter or my, stuff that's higher in the frequency range of my mix to be at my sides. And I like that warm bass kick, warmer sound to be in the middle. So that's basically what I'm doing. I'm taking out a lot of the, bass or the low end from the side frequencies to give my mix a lot more clarity and headroom. So when I master, it'll actually be louder. And basically that middle information will feel nice in the center and not interfere with the sides at all. The sides will be its own thing. The middle will be its own thing. You'll notice that the vocals will get a lot more clear. You'll notice your low end will feel tighter and it'll just sound overall much better. Check this out. So I'm using an iZotope Ozone 7 equalizer. Yeah, I'm kind of old on this, but this is one I just swore by for so long. So all I do is I go over here at 82 hertz and I roll off. I use a low pass filter, a high pass, right? Let the lows through. I use a low cut and I roll off at about 82 hertz. The way I do it is you can click LR or MS right in the EQ. Hit side, and I literally just attack the sides. You can attack the middle separate from the way you attack the sides, just how I showed you right there. So basically, I attack the sides, roll it off, and now I'm gonna let you hear what it sounds like. So without first. It's a slight change, just listen close.
Me and my ex were toxic, we were super sick. That's why we stayed up undercover, so bedridden. Yeah, it was so contagious that my mama knew. She looked at me like, who are you? Get away from me. Yeah, now back to this bed that we living on. Yeah, it's the only place that we can get along. Can't call the homies to chill.
And if you listen to that, you can hear the clarity. It just sounds a lot better. It sounds a lot less muddy. Mind you, we've already making steps to make it more clear, but this clears it up even more and makes everything just sit in a much better place. I highly recommend that trick right there as far as your side information, trying to find a mid-side EQ, something that has that type of capability that you can actually affect them differently. And that's it. Well, I hope that was very helpful for you guys. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe. Make sure you email me at helpmedevon@gmail.com if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Make sure you follow us at helpmedevon on the Instagram. And once again, this is the road to 100K. Make sure you spread this. Keep telling your friends about it. I hope this helps. Once again, let me know in the comments. And until next time, you guys.